Thank you all very much. I appreciate the chance to contribute again to the G8+5 Legislators Dialogue, a group I've supported since 2006. Although this is my second year in a row appearing via video, I fondly remember participating in times past. As this dialogue is well aware, among environmental dangers, global warming is surely the most serious of all. The facts of global warming demand our urgent attention, especially in Washington. And I'm pleased to report that both candidates for the U.S. presidency have pledged to promote U.S. leadership on this important issue. Good stewardship, prudence, and simple common sense demand that we act to meet the challenge and act quickly. I'm as disappointed as anyone that the Senate was not able to make more progress on the cap-and-trade legislation earlier this month. Nevertheless, the discussion over the best ideas for resolving this problem is, at long last, beginning to take hold in the United States. Some of the most compelling evidence of global warming comes to us from satellite images, and I've seen some of this evidence up close. A few years ago, I traveled to the area of Svalbard, Norway, a group of islands in the Arctic Ocean, as you know. I was shown the southernmost point where a glacier had reached 20 years earlier. From there, we had to venture northward up the fjord to see where that same glacier ends today, because the rest has melted. On a trip to Alaska, I heard about a National Park Visitor Center that was built to offer a picture-perfect view of a large glacier. Problem is, the glacier's gone. A work of nature that took ages to form had melted away in a matter of decades. The U.S. government must strike at the source of the problem with reforms that only Congress can enact and the President can sign. That will require that the United States put in the type of effort that GLOBE represents, a pulling together of legislators across partisan divides. For GLOBE, this means from the G8, Brazil, China, India, Mexico, and South Africa. In the United States, we need to reach a compromise between just two political parties. These efforts must result in progressive proposals on climate and energy that build political consensus and allow governments the confidence to move more ambitiously. My preferred approach to this challenge is the cap-and-trade system that instantly unites the automakers, coal companies, power plants, and every other enterprise to have an incentive to reduce carbon emissions. Cap-and-trade will encourage venture capitalists, corporate planners, small businesses, and environmentalists to all work together for the same good purpose. Such cooperation is actually possible in the case of climate change, and this reform will set it in motion. I have proposed that the U.S. cap its emissions according to specific goals, measuring progress by reference to past carbon emissions. By the year 2012, we'll seek a return to 2005 levels of emission. By 2020, a return to 1990 levels, and so on, until we've achieved at least a reduction of 60% below 1990 levels by the year 2050. In the course of time, it may be that new ideas and technologies will come along that we can hardly imagine today, allowing all industries to change with a speed that will surprise us. In support of these objectives, we cannot afford to take economic growth and job creation for granted. A strong and growing economy is essential to all of our goals, and especially the goal of finding alternatives to carbon-based technology. We want to turn the global economy toward cleaner and safer energy sources. We can't achieve that by imposing costs on the economy that can't be sustained. In addressing the problem of climate change, cooperation among the governments of the developed and developing world will be essential. China, India, Brazil, Mexico, South Africa, and other developing economic powers are among the greatest contributors to global warming today. From their perspective, they think that we in the industrialized world are not in any position to preach the good news of carbon emission control. But we also must recognize that we made most of our contributions to global warming before anyone knew about it. In order to build successfully on the Kyoto protocols, the United States must lead and with an approach that speaks of the interests and obligation of every nation. Shared dangers mean shared duties, and global problems require global cooperation. The United States and our friends in Europe cannot deal with the threat of global warming on their own. No nation should be exempted from its obligations, and least of all should we make exceptions for the very countries that are accelerating carbon emissions while the rest of us seek to reduce emissions. If we're going to establish meaningful environmental protocols, then they must include the two nations, China and India, that have the potential to pollute the air faster and in greater annual volume than any nation in history. At the same time, the United States should in good faith engage with developing nations to enact the standards and controls that are in the interests of every nation, whatever their stage of economic development. These developing economic powers will soon recognize, as America is beginning to do, their urgent need for cleaner burning fuels and cleaner sources of energy. More so than any other environmental challenges, global warming presents a test of foresight, of political courage, and of the unselfish legacy that one generation owes to the next. We need to think straight about the dangers ahead and to meet the problem with all the resources of human ingenuity at our disposal. We Americans like to say that there's no problem we can't solve, however complicated, and no obstacle we can't overcome if we meet it together. I believe that GLOBE, which has facilitated the development of a serious proposal on combating climate change beyond 2012, is emblematic of these needed efforts. I applaud you for your efforts and look forward to continuing our work together to address this most pressing of global challenges. I welcome Prime Minister Fukuda to these discussions as we proceed on this issue within the G8. I'm sure your insight will be greatly appreciated, as well as that of your predecessor, Prime Minister Abe. It is good to see both of you representing your country on this critical topic. I also say hello to my good friend, Prime Minister Blair, and thank him for his continual commitment to resolving this issue. Thank you.